Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching this weekly ag weather forecast brought to you by the Farm Credit Associations of North Carolina. We look back over the time period of basically July 1st through August the 8th, and we can take a look at our precipitation ranks. I just wanted to point out a couple of things here. Just notice as we get toward the Appalachian Mountains, especially in parts of Virginia, West Virginia, we have been quite dry. Although throughout much of North and South Carolina, we've seen some very timely rains, and combine that with a lack of extreme heat, which I'll show you in a few moments, things have really improved. Now, also, just a couple of other areas to point out here. We've been discussing these lately. Pockets of the Central Plains, the northern plains around the Red River Valley of the North, extending into this region right in through here of Iowa, northern Illinois, southern Wisconsin. That's an area that's been dry. And we did have some storms that went through there just last night, so I want a lot of folks that are, of course, watching the corn and soybean markets to be well aware of that. But what we need to get into in this discussion is how well the models have been performing. So this is just looking back at the forecast I gave you a week ago. And we're seeing here that we talked a lot about how the heaviest precipitation would be closest to the coast and we'd be drier and toward the interior. So this is what we showed a week ago. I just want to kind of show you how well the model's been performing. So this is what the rainfall looked like. And you can see that that was a great forecast for parts of North and South Carolina, but a few things that were not well represented in the models are actually back here in parts of the Corn Belt, because through early this morning we did see quite a bit more rainfall in this area than was anticipated. But outside of this, we did see a pretty good model forecast performance here. So I just want to bring you up to speed on that. Okay, three sets of animations here. The first is going to be some satellite data. This morning we've woken up to some clear skies, okay? Storms are still moving through parts of the I-states here, but I just want to take you back to yesterday. So this is going backwards in time. That's last night. That's all infrared satellite imagery. And then there was sunset, of course, going backwards across the image. Now, over the weekend, we saw quite a bit of smoke from the wildfires, and very dangerous fires here that burned a lot in California, get spread out ahead of this deeper wave that was developing right here. And that's going to go through the Red River Valley of the North, and that's going to increase storm chances there tonight. But I just wanted you to see the extent of that smoke in the midsection of the United States. That has been being dealt with for quite some time now. Now from here, I'd like to show you the rainfall over the last about 16 hours or so. So you can see the storms kind of curling up through the I-states here. And then we did get some scattered convection or scattered storms that were across parts of North Carolina, but not really too much. See them right there? Just some local pockets of storms throughout the day on Sunday. Now I'm bringing you to kind of bigger picture here because I also want to extend this forecast and have a deep discussion about what's going on in the tropics, how we kind of get this bigger perspective, of what's going on here across the U.S. So what we're watching, if I just kind of rock back and forth this morning with the latest infrared satellite data, we're watching this group of tropical thunderstorms right here. It is a tropical disturbance, which means a group of tropical thunderstorms. But as you can see, there's pretty healthy convection, bigger storms, colder cloud top temperatures here. And unlike what I thought a week ago, where I expected this to stay out over the open Atlantic, given the position of that high, there's now better guidance that this is going to be going through the Lesser Antilles first and Greater Antilles, and eventually, possibly by this weekend or the end of this week, over parts of Florida. Now we know what this means. It means that it tends to pull these systems through the Carolinas, and we better get a good look at what's going on here. National Hurricane Center, I waited this morning to record until after I got the 8 a.m. update, and what you can see is that they've given this lead wave a 70% chance of developing here through the next 5 days. And that's a high. That's a relatively high percent chance of this becoming a tropical depression, which it may do by the end of the day today, and then possibly becoming our next named storm. The most recent one, of course, was Elsa, which of course took that track, but that was back at the beginning of July. So let's show a few different resources here. This is the European model 51-member ensemble on the forecast track. Now, out past day 5, which is right here, you can see the spread is relatively large, okay? But that's to be expected at this point. The main thing I want to discuss here, though, is that the models are bringing this toward Florida. And where it heads after we get through the end of this week into the weekend, largely will curl what's left of this through the Carolinas. And I've used the European, I've seen the GFS, and just basing that also on the guidance we've seen from the National Hurricane Center, the likelihood of this system continuing to develop and then eventually pushing that moisture into the Carolinas is relatively high. All right, that's the main bit of news that we have right now. Now, what could limit this could possibly be some of the wind shear in its way. Now, when you look at these maps, the higher the values, the greater the difference between the low-level winds and the upper-level winds. And the greater the difference between the low-level and upper-level winds, the more difficult it is for a tropical cyclone to survive. So we're watching right here. And what we're looking at is, as it goes in this direction, what does the wind shear look like in its path? Now, currently you can see it's relatively high, but do those stronger winds get out of the way as this tropical system moves forward? And it stays relatively high on the northern side. Do you see that? Relatively higher shear with the upper level flow going in this direction. But does the tropical system, which is right now moving almost toward Puerto Rico by the time we get out to Wednesday, does it stay to the south of this higher shear environment? Because as I get out there farther, it just doesn't seem to impede it too much in terms of its forward track. I know it's subtle what I'm watching here, but I think this is what's going to be one of the bigger limiting factors on this blowing up to possibly becoming a more powerful hurricane. That's my latest understanding of this, but I'm going to tell you there's quite a bit of uncertainty as this moves forward. Now, because of all that uncertainty, I just want to plug this again. Every morning I release an update. It would get to you folks on the East Coast by about 8:30 to 9 a.m. And you can get signed up for it. It's just my free daily weather reports. The URL is up here at the top. It's info.nutrien.com/snodgrass_weather. You just put your email in here, and when you get signed up, then you can get my morning emails. And if you don't like them, just delete them. But they're a national update on what's going on in the weather, or you can even unsubscribe if you don't want to watch. But I want to keep you aware because I'm quite concerned about where this system is eventually going to go, as you see here from the National Hurricane Center, really putting it close to Florida by Friday. Okay, so with that, let's now take this over to the latest update on the forecast. WPC forecast, where last week we were wettest closer to the coast. This week, due to this big low that's curling up in the Hudson Bay, we're going to watch the slow progression of a front toward the Appalachian Mountains and then eventually getting into the central part of North Carolina. So now you see that if you are to the west of this line, better chances of being wet. That is until the tropical system here makes its way toward us. Another way to look at this would just say, what over the next 10 days does the probability look like for getting another inch of rain? So you see that coming out of the Ohio Valley into the Tennessee Valley, and then eventually here to the Appalachian Mountains, that's our best chances of getting over an inch of rain. And like a week ago, we're drier toward the coast until this tropical system advances toward us here, all right? But that's going to be pretty late in the time period. So let me show it to you by going to our high-res European model. I want you to see this bigger system curling up the Hudson Bay because it's amazing. That's the system that's going to affect our weather. So going forward throughout Monday, I'll just put it this way, the next 4 days in North Carolina, you're going to see every day a 30% chance of storms blowing up on the afternoon. You've got plenty of moisture in place and weak triggers, in other words, weak fronts. And so it's just going to get these flashes of green that come through in the afternoon. That's 1 p.m. tomorrow. Let's go back here. There you go. That's by the evening on Tuesday. So you can see those scattered storm chances, mostly concentrated along the coast, and then here once you get into the western half of the state. All right, that's through Tuesday evening. Let's go out now to Wednesday morning, afternoon, and evening. And now you can start to see what I'm talking about. See the big low here? The front is way out there like that, and it's weak, but that's what we're going to watch our better chances of scattered storms to form on late in the week. So this would be Wednesday evening. Now we get out here to Thursday afternoon and evening. Again, scattered storms coming up on Friday afternoon and evening. So that's what we're going to be dealing with, is that frontal boundary focused farther to the west, but throughout the end of this week, that's what we're talking about. Now, the operational European model has two things. That's the position of the next tropical cyclone. Here's the stalled out frontal boundary. And right now, the model is attempting to bring both of these things together as we work our way into next week. Now, there's a lot of uncertainty past this weekend, but I just want to show you that through Sunday morning, afternoon, and evening, getting out there into Monday afternoon and evening. Do you see how they both come together right in this area? And that's why we see increased chances of rainfall at that time period. But before we get there, now that's, again, we're way out into next week. Before we get there, this is what we're looking at in terms of total accumulated precip. So you see that through Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday now, getting into Friday, drier along the coast, except for daily scattered storms that we expect on the sea breeze, wetter into the interior, And then it won't be until this tropical system, see it right here, merges up with that frontal boundary, watch, that we see the increased chances of rainfall. But that's way out into the middle of next week that we're talking about that happening. Maybe, Tuesday into Wednesday. That's what the current timing would be for when that rain could come through. And I'm just going to let you know, a lot is going to change between now and then. All right. So if we just narrow this down to the next 7 days, let me zoom this back out for you. We get that same story. We are drier over toward the coast and wetter into the interior. All right. That's the bigger picture through the next 7 days. We're waiting on this. Okay, from here, when we look out at the week 2 pattern, we see that there's going to be a ridge forming by day 10. That would be next Thursday here in the Gulf of Alaska, one running up over the northeast. So the flow has to go around both of them. Now we're going to have relatively weak flow all across the southern part of the United States. And because of that, the GFS model isn't doing much with the precip. What you've got here is from the tropical system in the GFS getting out there into week 2. It is drier, though, other than that. But I don't think we need to rely on the GFS, because while the European has that same ridge here, the same ridge there, the flow is just a little bit different, and the European model has been doing a much, much better job at handling the coastal storm development over the last month. And that's why I'm tending to trust what you see here, okay, in the European model for week 2. Now, much of this is going to be coming from the tropical system, but it's pretty consistent that this area, the whole of the mid-Atlantic through the Carolinas, is going to be looking at a wetter week 2 once the tropical system advances into this area. And a lot of scattered storms throughout much of the rest of the U.S. So I want you to hone in on this figure, not the one from the GFS, but I wanted to show you their differences, all right? Let's talk temperatures next. Right now, all the heat is tucked away right here into the mid-south over into parts of the southern plains where they have heat advisories. This is all air quality issues here, and then in the Pacific Northwest, we're going back over very, very hot. So when we look at our temperatures lately, this is how things have shaped up from July 1st through August the 8th. We have resisted really seeing extended time periods of above normal temperatures. In fact, we're sitting in like a top, 30 coolest summer so far. We got 130 years of data in this as well. All the heat has been to the west. Well, how are temperatures shaping up over this week? Let's expand this so we can see a little bit clearer. Today, going toward that 90-degree mark. It's going to be humid too. Then as we go into Tuesday and Wednesday, we again just see the temperatures quite consistent. Highs in the low 90s this week. The heat's going to be right here in the central plains. It's also going to be coming back into the northwest. This is Wednesday's highs. There's Thursday. That's going to be getting warmer. High around Raleigh, 92, 93. We're going to see that again on Friday and Saturday. Now, there's a front. Remember the front I told you? It is advancing by the weekend. And here's some of the cooler conditions that are coming in with that tropical system. But until all that gets to us, we're not going to get some cooler weather. Maybe by Sunday, the front slides through and cools things off. But that's going to be mostly driven by some cloud cover and some precipitation. What about day 5 through 10? Let's go up and take a look at it here from the European model. You notice at that point, we go back over to our more normal temperatures while the heat comes into the west as that ridge builds, remember? And here's the ridge keeping the Canadian Maritimes warm. But the cooler weather has come in here, and we're going to go back toward normal temperatures as we get up to the day 5 through 10 time period. So, bigger picture the next 2 weeks. Watch the tropics. Temperatures are hot. Daily scattered storms, fronts advancing. That's what I want you to take away from the next 10 days or so. All right. From there, new data from the European model. Let's look at the time period of August 10th through September the 10th. And you notice it's that same story. I'm just tracing out the contours here. I don't know what could shut down the Gulf of Mexico at this point. I just don't see it. And if that's there, well, you can expect the precipitation pattern to look wet. I mean, this is what you got. Scattered storms constantly. Tropical systems cranking. I just think that's what we're looking at here going through September. I think you're going to be seeing better chances of being above average in terms of precip through the rest of August getting into September than we would be on getting dry. And are the temperatures going to be hot? Not if we keep pumping all that heat into the west. Could we see, normal getting into those 90s with pop-up storms? Yeah, that I see. But the greatest heat is in the western United States right now, and that's going to, I think, be the more dominant factor moving forward. Speaking of moving forward, I want to bring you up to date on the latest long-range European model data, and we're going to start with ocean temperatures. Right in through here is going to be our main target area to be watching for the pattern going into fall. We've had cooler water emerge. The Southern Oscillation Index is very positive, indicating strong trade winds and La Nina developing. Look how hot the ocean temperatures are here coming off of China and Japan throughout much of the North Pacific. And we are plenty warm enough in the main development region for tropical cyclones to develop here. It's not super hot in the Atlantic, but it is plenty warm. But given this developing La Nina in this area, the long-range European says for September, October, and November that outside of tropical systems coming through here, okay, and that's a big if, but outside those tropical systems, we do tend to favor a drier harvest time period, okay? So while I said from now through September 10th, we keep the Gulf open, we keep storms going, and we go toward an active tropical cyclone season. If the La Nina tends to dominate, we tend to kind of lose that signal going into September and then October and November. So there are better chances at this point that we see near normal to drier than normal conditions through fall, although we still have to get there yet, and we do have a busy tropical cyclone season that is on tap. So I wanted to bring you up to speed on those latest long-range projections, and just want to show you that as we go from this time period to October, November, December, and then November, December, January, we could go into a drier fall and early winter. That's what some of the long-range models are keying in on right now. So I'll keep an eye on that, keep you posted, and I'll report back to you next Monday. Have a good rest of your week, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks.